How many times does a nation have to bleed before it realizes that silence is no longer a strategy? Imagine waking up one morning to find your neighbors arming the very people who destroyed your city last time, knowing they are doing it from their own soil. That is the terrifying reality sitting in Seoul right now. But before you let that thought settle, if you care about understanding what is actually shaping our world, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who needs to see the bigger picture. Because what happens next changes everything we think we know about war. South Korea stands at a crossroads unlike any other country on Earth. It is a place where history repeats itself with painful precision. Look at the map and you see two nations fighting the same ghost. Ukraine fights Russia. South Korea fears North Korea. Both countries believe they once shared a bond with the aggressor, a bond built on shared bloodlines, shared languages, and a history of kinship that was severed by ideology. For Ukraine, the brother was a neighbor across the river who decided he owned the house. For South Korea, the brother lived on the peninsula, divided only by a narrow strip of land known as the demilitarized zone. When Vladimir Putin marched his armies into Ukraine, he did not just attack a country, he triggered a memory in Seoul that had never healed. You cannot feel the impact of war through a news report, but South Korea feels it in its bones. They watched the fires of Moscow light up the winter sky in Kyiv, and they saw the faces of displaced families in Lviv, remembering how it felt when they fled north in 1950. Empathy alone would not save them. Logic was required. If the machine feeding the enemy grows stronger, the person holding the gun is safer from the recoil. South Korea understood this mathematical cruelty better than anyone. They realized that if North Korea wins the battle of resources with Russia, the peace treaty on their own border becomes a lie. So they did something the Kremlin never expected. They did not fire a bullet. They fired up their factories. This is not a simple trade deal. It is an architectural shift in global power. For 30 years, Russia looked at East Asia and saw stability. They saw a neutral zone where South Korea traded goods but stayed out of politics. Hyundai sold cars. Samsung sold phones. Energy flowed through pipelines. But the Golden Age died the moment Pyongyang signed a secret accord in the mountains near Vladivostok. That agreement gave Russia ammunition and soldiers. In return, Russia is giving North Korea the blueprint to survive. We are talking about nuclear submarine reactors and ballistic missile guidance systems. Think about the scale of that transfer. It means the island nation in the Pacific, previously limited to surface launchers, could soon hide underwater threats capable of bypassing defense grids entirely. It is the end of the old security order. South Korea knows that a war starting in Eastern Europe is already a war ending in the Korean peninsula. The shells fired by DPRK troops in the trenches of Ukraine are coming from a factory floor in Pyeongchang, but they are being guided by software developed in Moscow. It is a supply chain that cuts across continents and crosses into existential territory. South Korea responded not with anger, but with integration. They opened the door wider than ever before to the West. They stepped onto the stage of the European Union's defense network, and they brought their best machinery with them. Consider the impact of a decision made to align with NATO standards. For decades, South Korea produced some of the most advanced artillery in the world, the K-9 Thunder. These self-propelled howitzers are fast, accurate, and deadly. They can fire 3 rounds per minute and vanish before the counter-battery radar picks them up. Previously, buying these meant a complicated web of bilateral contracts. Germany bought them separately. Poland bought them separately. Each negotiation took months. Now, the goal is full standardization. This means ammo boxes fit in any truck. Communication channels work on the same frequency. Repair crews can swap parts anywhere in Europe without special tools. This reduces the time to rebuild a weapon from weeks to days. It turns a collection of individual buyers into a single logistical organism, and the physical footprint is expanding. A massive industrial complex is rising in Romania, close enough to hear the echoes of the front lines. It will produce tens of thousands of units a year. That is not just exports. That is production capacity embedded inside the continent. It creates jobs. It builds infrastructure. It locks the supply line in concrete. Once the factory is there, it cannot be removed. Once the technicians are trained, the expertise stays. Russia wants to win a war of attrition. But if South Korea wins the industrial race, Russia finds itself facing a factory that operates 24 hours a day. This shift is not limited to heavy steel. The air war is changing faster than anything else on the ground. Ukraine has rewritten the rules of engagement with small, cheap drones. A device costing $2,000 can destroy a $10 million tank. It sounds inefficient, but it works. Drones turn the battlefield into a digital landscape where sensors are king. South Korea is watching this live laboratory with intense interest. Their own borders face a swarm threat from the north. Every year, hundreds of reconnaissance balloons drift over the capital, dropping propaganda. If North Korea upgrades these with precision munitions, the danger is immediate. So Seoul partners with Washington and Kyiv. They exchange code, Ukrainian programmers share algorithms that allow drones to fly through signal jamming. South Korean engineers bring the silicon. They are world leaders in semiconductor manufacturing and battery technology. Long flight times mean the drone stays airborne long enough to patrol a wide area. Fast charging means the operator can launch more missions in a shorter window. This collaboration makes the defense system impenetrable to local threats, but it also equips Ukraine with hardware they desperately lack. It is a mutual exchange of survival. One side gets the technology to build the brain, the other side gets the skills to guide the eye, but there is a human cost behind the numbers and the chips. It is the cost of trust. When President Lee Jae-myung entered office, he campaigned on peace. He spoke softly about dialogue and reducing tensions on the peninsula, yet the pressure of the Russia-North Korea alliance forces his hand. Even a leader who prefers diplomacy cannot ignore the tactical reality. The budget increases. The defense ministry expands. New alliances form. You might wonder why Japan fits into this puzzle. Historically, relations between Tokyo and Seoul have been cold, stained by the scars of colonialism. But geopolitics does not care about history books anymore. It cares about missiles. With Russia distracted in the south, it has reduced its naval presence in the North Pacific. This weakens its hold on disputed islands claimed by Japan. Seeing a shrinking adversary allows Japan to stand taller. It encourages them to join the framework of security talks that include South Korea. Suddenly, the two largest naval powers in the Western Pacific are coordinating on defense strategies. This scares Beijing. It scares Moscow. It was supposed to be a unified front against the West, but instead it has created a new ring of steel around the Eurasian heartland. The circle closes tighter every day. Think about the psychological blow to Vladimir Putin. For years, he believed he could divide the world. He thought he could buy neutrality from nations that were too poor to defend themselves. He thought Asia would stay distant while Europe burned. He bet on isolationism. But South Korea chose alliance. That choice ripples outward. It tells other middle powers that neutrality is dangerous. It shows them that you can protect yourself by becoming indispensable. If a factory is vital, attacking it risks economic ruin. If a supplier is critical, sanctions become difficult to enforce. South Korea has placed itself at the center of the global supply chain for advanced artillery and electronics. You cannot sanction a partner who holds the keys to your own army's maintenance. It is a subtle cage, built not of chains, but of dependencies. This is not a victory shout. It is a quiet realization that power lies in logistics. The man who moves the food moves the army. The one who ships the spare parts keeps the weapons running. By embedding himself into the European logistics network, South Korea ensures that the war effort continues regardless of political fluctuations. Time is no longer on Putin's side. We must also look at the deeper structural issues defining this new era. South Korea still lacks nuclear weapons. It relies on the American nuclear umbrella for ultimate protection. There is always a debate in Seoul about whether Washington would trade Los Angeles for Seoul in a worst-case scenario. This fear drives the push for conventional superiority. They need to make the cost of an attack so high that aggression becomes irrational. The influx of South Korean aid to Ukraine strengthens the European defense posture, which indirectly stabilizes the American position globally. But it also highlights a vulnerability. As long as the asymmetry exists, insecurity remains. Russia is accelerating its own capabilities. North Korea is practicing under combat conditions. If the training grounds of Ukraine teach Pyongyang new tactics, those tactics return home. They learn how to spot tanks. They learn how to use drones against fortifications. They learn how to survive artillery barrages. A regime that fights abroad returns stronger at home. The lesson is brutal. Every shell Russia uses in Ukraine sharpens the spear aimed at Seoul. Every soldier they lose is replaced by experience gained in the field. This is why South Korea cannot afford to hesitate. They are funding a defensive shield that protects both Europe and the Pacific. It is one investment with multiple dividends. There's a philosophical argument here that goes beyond military hardware. It is about the identity of modern warfare. Nations are moving away from mass conscription armies toward technologically superior force multipliers. You do not need millions of men if you have precision machines. This favors economies with strong tech sectors like South Korea. It disadvantages economies reliant on raw manpower. This shifts the balance of power permanently. It favors the innovator over the brute. Putin tried to fight this war like a century ago, expecting numbers to overcome skill. But the battlefield demands speed, accuracy, and connectivity. South Korea offers exactly that. They offer a system where a damaged vehicle can be repaired in hours, where a drone battery can be swapped in seconds, where communication is instant. This is the future of fighting, and they are selling it to the defenders of freedom. It is ironic that the country known for consumer electronics is now supplying the backbone of a continental defense strategy. The boundary between peace economy and war economy is blurring. The same factories building smartphones are capable of building drones. The same workers coding apps can program autonomous systems. This dual-use nature means economic strength translates directly into security power. It is a truth that authoritarian regimes often underestimate until it is too late. The reaction in Moscow is one of growing unease. Diplomats are scrambling to undo the damage. Embargoes are discussed. Economic pressure is threatened. But the tide is turned. You cannot unsign a treaty. You cannot unbuild a factory. Once the integration begins, it is irreversible. The momentum of the market is too strong. European nations need reliability. They need volume. South Korea can deliver. No other nation in Asia can match the combination of output and quality. India is trying to build, but they lag in advanced materials. China is focused on domestic consumption and export, but they face their own Western containment. South Korea fills the gap perfectly. They are geographically stable, politically reliable, and industrially unmatched. This makes them a strategic pivot point. If Russia loses influence in Asia, they lose leverage globally. If China sees an ally retreat, they reconsider their own posture. The dominoes are falling. The wall of silence around Russia is cracking. It starts with a decision in Seoul to help Kiev. It ends with a reassessment in Beijing on how to deal with the United States. The shockwave travels further than the front lines. Ultimately, this story is about choices. It is about standing up when you feel outnumbered. It is about recognizing that waiting for help is a losing strategy. South Korea realized they could be the solution, not just the victim. They looked at their own suffering and decided to stop it elsewhere. It is a bold move for a nation that remembers division vividly. They know that fences do not protect you forever. Walls crumble, borders open. Only strength keeps the border closed. They are building strength through cooperation, through standards, through shared destiny. This is a new kind of deterrence. It is economic. It is technological. It is political. It says to the aggressor that you cannot buy your way out of consequences. You cannot steal the future. You cannot seize the tools of the enemy and expect to win. The resistance has found a new engine. It runs on lithium batteries and microchips. It breathes through NATO protocols. It moves across shipping lanes from Busan to Odessa. And it is unstoppable. If you want to stay ahead of the news cycle and get this kind of deep analysis, click the link in the description. Join our email list. We send weekly briefings that dissect the stories breaking daily. Don't let the headlines fool you. Read between the lines. Stay informed because information is the first line of defense in any modern conflict. The world is watching South Korea to see if their model works. If it succeeds, other nations will copy it. If it fails, they will doubt the effectiveness of their own defenses. So this is your chance to watch history unfold on screen. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss the next update. The conclusion of this chapter depends on what Russia does next. Will they escalate? Will they try to sabotage the supply chains? Or will they realize that the game has changed? The pressure is mounting. Every shipment that leaves Busan adds another layer of complexity to the Russian command structure. They are losing the ability to dictate the terms. They are reacting, not leading. They are defending, not advancing. This is the definition of losing control. And control is what empires thrive on. When the initiative slips, the decline begins. South Korea understands that decline faster than others. They have lived through the collapse of their own economy. They know how fragile prosperity can be. That fragility taught them resilience. They learned to adapt. They learned to integrate. They learned that isolation is the path to poverty. Today, they lead the charge toward integration. They are pulling the rest of Asia into the fold. They are making the Pacific a bridge instead of a barrier. So what does this mean for you? It means the geopolitical map is redrawing itself in real time. It means wars will be fought differently. It means the rules of engagement are shifting. It means that if you buy a phone or drive a car made in Asia, you are consuming the legacy of this new security architecture. You are part of the economy that funds the defense. You are connected to the outcome. Do not ignore the ripple effects. The decisions made in boardrooms in Seoul echo in streets in Warsaw. They echo in villages in the Caucasus. They echo in the hearts of families who remember what it was like to flee their homes. This is why it matters. This is not just about tanks or guns. It is about dignity. It is about the right to choose your own path. It is about preventing the nightmare of a third front opening up. And if the lessons of Europe apply to Asia, maybe the cycle of violence can finally be broken. Maybe the cages can be lifted. Maybe peace can be built not on treaties written in ink, but on industries built on steel and trust. As we close this episode, remember that the pen and the printer are sometimes more powerful than the sword. Words shape reality. Decisions shape futures. We hope you walked away with a clearer view of the stakes involved. Do not hesitate to engage with the comment section below. Tell us what you think about this shift in power dynamics. Is this the beginning of a new Asian Cold War? Or is it a new era of regional stability? Your opinions matter to our community. We are building a space where intelligence meets insight. Thank you for spending your time here. Take care of yourselves, stay curious, and keep looking deeper.